It is really sad that the Bible's authors apparently could not conceive of the abolition of slavery. It just wasn't in the cards for them. I mean, the best they could do is like imagine slightly nicer versions of slavery on occasion, which is obviously radically insufficient to motivate large systemic changes at early points in Christian history. And as a result, tons of people suffered unnecessarily because it took Christians so long to get on board with the abolition of slavery. I don't know if there's an answer to this question. I mean, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. One of those recurring things that you torture yourself with from time to time. I spent a lot of time thinking about. I'm not aware of that. There's a scholarly consensus, like scholars offering an answer to this question. Why couldn't they imagine it? I'm not aware. I don't even think I've read a scholar who's like hypothesized why that might be. If there is, I'd certainly be happy to defer to whatever that answer is. Um, the the farthest I've gotten in thinking about it, and this is nothing. So this is not biblical scholar. I'm just thinking here. This is not my professional opinion or anything. But the farthest I've gotten in thinking about it is by appropriating an idea from Marxist cultural criticism. There was a philosopher and like cultural critic named Mark Fisher. He was an English dude, passed away some years ago now. He wrote a book called Capitalist Realism. And the book is laying out his theory of capitalist realism, which is this idea that we've reached a point in the Western world collectively. It's like a cultural condition in which we can no longer robustly and collectively imagine an alternative to capitalism. It is so deeply ingrained in culture and imagination and the arts, in ways that we're no longer capable of meaningfully contesting. And some of the like symptoms that he points to in his book that are indicative of this state of capitalist realism are basic things like nobody seems to be offering an alternative, but like people continue to support capitalism even when it's obviously hurting them. It's destroying their lives, but they continue to support it. They continue to support it. Even the people that you would expect to come up with an alternative continue to support it. They just advocate for reforms within the system or regulated versions that are supposed to be slightly better, than what it is now. Most perniciously, one of the most egregious symptoms is that capitalist concepts and language start appearing in non-economic areas of thought. People start applying capitalist terms to non-economic areas of thought. And when we think about these symptoms, the capitalist realism is kind of vaguely defined, but when we start thinking about these symptoms, we start seeing evidence for them, right? We start seeing that, yeah, this kind of seems like it does describe contemporary culture. Where are the viable alternatives that people are putting forward robustly and collectively? It does seem like a lot of people who would be in a position to offer alternatives are just offering, regulatory advancements instead. It does seem like some of the people who are hurt most by capitalism continue to support it. And it does seem like we've adopted capitalist language into non-economic areas of life. I know I always tell myself, like, if I have a day off or something, I got to be productive with my time, like as though I'm gonna produce some excess capital sitting around doing nothing on a day when I should be relaxing or something like that. But it's part of all sorts of things. We try and manage how we spend our time. People talk about how difficult it is out there in the dating market and all this kind of. I mean, once you start thinking about it, you can see these terms have infiltrated other areas of thinking. Obviously, the biblical texts and the world of the biblical text is not a capitalist world. These are all pre-capitalist societies. But we can sort of, I think we can, or at least this is what I've been doing in the back of my head, in my imagination, we can sort of appropriate this idea of capitalist realism and imagine instead a cultural condition that's analogous to that would be called something like slavery realism or like slave economy realism. And that would be basically a world in which, or a cultural condition in which people can no longer robustly and collectively imagine alternatives to slavery. so deeply infiltrated, again, all these different areas of thought and the social world, cultural world, artistic world, philosophical world, is so deeply penetrated into all these different areas of human life that it's just become a de facto part of the human condition. And we see some of these same symptoms. We see, people continue to advocate for slavery, even though when it hurts them. The Israelites, as much as we may see slave laws in the Pentateuch, for example, it's not like the Israelites are, the ones who are benefiting from these slave laws. They're not the ones who are enslaving people. They're the ones being enslaved, right? They're the ones who are being dominated and oppressed by these other empires. Slavery within ancient Israel, like 9 times out of 10, would just be like, your cousin over the hill borrowed grain from us last year, so he's going to come over and work for us this harvest season. I mean, that would be like most of it. The people who could actually afford slaves would be elite people in urban environments who would primarily be purchasing like scribes and skilled labor and stuff. But that's a vanishingly small minority. It's not the Israelites who are benefiting. They're the ones, by justifying slavery, they are the ones they're justifying their own enslavement. Right? They're at the bottom of the social political power, spectrum in this region. And again, just like with capitalist realism, they don't advance alternatives. They advance just reforms. Like, maybe we can make this a little bit better here and there. The New Testament household codes that all condone slavery in their own way and all tell slaves to obey their masters, the most they can be like is, your master should be nice to you. Whatever that, I don't know how you nicely own somebody. I don't know how you nicely objectify someone and nicely order and demand their labor and own their bodies. I don't know how you nicely do that, but that's the best that they can think of. And then the third condition, the slave language starts to infiltrate non-economic areas of life. This is the one that actually got me thinking about this to begin with, because I thought of Paul and how enthusiastically he calls himself a slave of Christ. And just how think about how strange that he's sort of just resigned himself to, like, this is the way the world works, so I might as well make the best of it, right? I might as well, like, take the most prestigious thing or the most, like, morally valiant thing that a person can be and make that about slavery. What a strange metaphor to use out of all the language available to a person, right? To so emphasize his slavery to Christ and to be so just like chill with that, right? I have no idea what Paul is thinking, and I'm not a New Testament scholar or a scholar of Paul. I know a scholar of Paul. Maybe I'll tag Boozy Bible Scholar on here, and maybe I would be happy to defer to her wisdom about what Paul is thinking. But it seems strange to me to anchor so much in this conception of ourselves as slaves of Christ, even in the face of the Gospels. I mean, not that Paul knew the Gospels, but in the Gospel of John, it's specifically that Jesus is not calls us slaves, but friends instead. But Paul's like, no, slaves. I'll take the slaves. And that's, I don't know, that seems like that warrants a surprising explanation. And the farthest that I've gotten to thinking about that is to maybe borrow this idea of capitalist realism. But I honestly don't know. But regardless, I've just been ranting. But regardless, it is terribly sad. It's terribly sad for them, and it's terribly sad for the cultures that have inherited the Bible and have had to, work with the Bible and try and find the liberation of peoples with the Bible. It is sad.